When your back's against the wall and it seems you have no options, in the distance you hear a mighty call from an unexpected savior. RedNote has come to the rescue to save you from boredom and a lack of scrolling, to help you stick it to the man and open your eyes to a whole new world. Thank you, RedNote, for coming when we needed you the most.
When the Supreme Court of the US decided to uphold the TikTok ban, they were not aware of the strength and resilience of the American people. They discounted the will to survive, the ability to pivot, and the bravery to keep going. As the countdown to the TikTok ban began, RedNote became the app of choice that became the perfect replacement in uncertain times. Not only was it a great app with great people, it was a Chinese app which allowed the Americans to stick it to their government. And its name, priceless. And so RedNote became the most downloaded app in the App Store, going #1 in the US as well as in countries like the UK and others, with Reuters stating that RedNote got over 700,000 new users in just 2 days. RedNote is not, in fact, the Chinese version of TikTok. That would go to Douyin. In fact, RedNote has been described to be a hybrid of Instagram and Pinterest and a sprinkle of TikTok on top. But that did not deter the new RedNote users. RedNote launched in 2013 and was originally named Hong Kong Shopping Guide. It grew over the years and took on the new name, Little Red Book, Xiang Hong Shu. Excuse my pronunciation. RedNote is now valued at about $17 billion. It currently boasts about 300 million monthly users, and 79% of them are women. As stated before, the app is not TikTok in more ways than one. Not only is it not the Chinese version of TikTok, but TikTok users have learned that there are some navigational errors that they need to overcome. #1, the language barrier. The app was mainly in Mandarin as people joined. It does seem that things began to be translated into English the more people joined. And second was censorship. Many people found themselves banned or unable to state any gender outside of male and female on the app. They were asked not to discuss anything about the LGBTQI plus community and other such things.
I also received some messages asking me about violation or something. It is because you violate the rules that you don't know it exists. So for example, you're not supposed to talk about politics, right? And also you don't say hate speech, something hateful or not respectful or something like that. And also for girls, when you post pictures or videos, be a little aware, here and super short pants, that could be the problem. Showing your cleavage, no, totally fine. You have the freedom to wear whatever you want. It's fine. Nobody said anything bad about it, but it's the rule there. It doesn't allow to show. They have a very good sensor, just can detect it immediately.
This was a surprise to some users, while others were eager to learn and follow the rules. I heard nothing but positive messages coming from those who had went to go dip their toe in RedNote. They praised the people for being kind and considerate, open and welcoming. They were excited to pay their cat tax, and on it went. This seemed like the perfect solution. I mean, not only are you getting a great app with great people, you are sending a message to the government about having autonomy over your own data, but also, and most importantly, you are getting to learn about a people, a culture, and a place that has seemed to have been blocked out of your general knowledge and understanding, according to Americans. And then I began to see videos crop up of some Chinese people in the diaspora not so excited about the consequences of this influx. Some issues began to pop up in this move. The first was the use of the term TikTok refugee. More than insensitivity, refugee status is a legally defined category under international law, granting specific rights and protections to individuals fleeing persecution or conflict. Misuse can dilute the meaning of the term, leading to confusion or reduced protections for those who genuinely qualify, especially in a world where immigration is under attack. There's also stigmas and stereotypes that come with the term refugee, and so overgeneralizing it or using it inaccurately can perpetuate those stereotypes. For instance, even though we all understand the severity and the issues behind the TikTok ban, to others, it may be another way to reinforce the lack of seriousness of refugees and their plight. We risk the loss of credibility by misusing the term in certain contexts. This can make it harder to advocate for humanitarian causes effectively. Misusing the term refugee to describe people who do not fit the legal definition can lead to misunderstanding, which can hamper effective responses to the plight of refugees. And finally, we do have a moral responsibility. Language shapes perceptions. Misusing the word can diminish the moral imperative to help individuals genuinely in need of protection, fostering indifference or apathy toward their plight. You might feel like hampering on this specific fact is unfair or an overreaction. So I want to come to you with more issues that popped up during the migration to RedNote. We also saw people being banned on RedNote, even for behaviors we may feel they should not have been banned for. This does not diminish the potential impact on the native users of the app. Native. Why does that sound familiar? Now I remember. See, the move to RedNote made me uncomfortable from the beginning. Initially, it was a good joke. It was witty, it was smart, it was funny, but I did feel a little sense of unease and I couldn't really place my finger on it. And then I started to see videos of Chinese people in the diaspora making videos about some consequences of this great migration. The first was a worry that there is now the potential of IPs being directed differently. So the IPs of those in mainland China showing one type of, one version of the content, and those that are outside of China seeing a different version of the content on the app. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if RedNote wasn't the way in which Chinese people in the diaspora keep connected to their culture and their people. And so their IPs being redirected with the rest of the Americans is detrimental to their ability to connect to their people and their home. I saw many Americans being flippant about this fact in the comment section. Now it looks like this never ended up happening or was taken off the table, but that source of not caring to me was jarring. I mean, Americans know the pain of losing something you love, even if it's just a social media app, and yet they seemed a little bit uncaring to the plights of people. I also saw this video.
If you're on Xiaohongshu, you might saw some posts saying that Americans are not welcome here and then they should go back. These opinions are actually not coming from Chinese nationalists or any Chinese people being xenophobic. People who are from China have never been abroad, usually welcome Americans. But someone who study abroad, like me, are telling Americans to go back. I'll explain why. When you see Americans flooding into Xiaohongshu, they find out that Chinese people are so welcoming and it was flowers and hugs and cheers, even if they don't speak Chinese at all. But what Chinese international student experience abroad was the complete opposite. I got to know how mean Americans can be when I pass the border. I see people with European passport passing through the custom within 1 minute. The guy who was checking the passport barely questioned them anything. But when the border see my Chinese passport, they have to interrogate me like a criminal for at least 10 minutes. That happened every time when I passed through the US border. Even if I'm an international student, and during this past 4 years, I've been verbally discriminated against. People has called me racial slurs, threatened to beat me up on the streets, push me in the bakery, and not to mention all the microaggressions coming from my classmates and professors just because I'm a Chinese student. And suddenly I see all those Americans who doesn't speak our language at all just suddenly flooded into Xiaohongshu, and everybody is welcoming them. And I thought to myself, how about all the discriminations and sufferings and pains and mental breakdown and exclusions I suffer in the States? Why don't I receive the same treatment in the United States? If people treat me like dirt in the US, what makes those Americans deserve such welcoming treatment from Chinese people?
And again, people push this off as, oh no, you are coming into contact with the far-right, racist Americans, not us who are moving to RedNote. In fact, I saw numerous people saying that the move to RedNote would trickle down and change the attitudes that Chinese people are facing on the ground. After living in a world where we saw the increase of hate crimes against Asian Americans during the pandemic, all of these things are happening in the same world amongst the same people and will not easily be forgotten because seemingly Americans have found something about China that they like. To me, as a non-Westerner who is from the global south, it read like every other time that a non-Western entity was being discovered. The benefits and positive aspects of it were being celebrated, while the needs and complications presented to the people were being disregarded. The comment sections and videos being made to announce that, in fact, none of this is happening in RedNote felt to me that the needs for Americans to find a new social media home superseded the needs of Chinese people to also keep this app. Because it is not out of the realm of possibility that this influx of international eyes on this app, and not only eyes but content, could lead to the banning or changing of this app for the native users, leaving them in the same situations that Americans are currently facing with TikTok. Are we then comfortable with the idea that the needs and saving of one group supersedes the comfortability that has been created by others in an environment they were found existing in? I did, in fact, make a video of this on my TikTok, and I was met with a little bit of pushback. Told that I don't appreciate how much this cultural exchange is going to change. TikTok is currently available in roughly 160 countries. I am not including the numbers of those people on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and a myriad of other social media platforms. In fact, you can argue that Americans had access to cultural exchange right on these apps for years. And yet, we still see the issues presented in these videos by the Chinese people in the diaspora. It felt like what began as a witty, almost scathing response to the American government turned into people feeling like RedNote would be their revolution. But RedNote will not end racism. RedNote will not be the weapon that changes the American government's mind on this particular brand of censorship. In fact, it puts RedNote in the firing line to be banned itself. Now, don't get me wrong. Many revolutions have started online. Revolution like the Arab Spring starting in Egypt, Occupy Wall Street in the US, Black Lives Matter in the US, and Fees Must Fall in South Africa, just to name but a few. My argument isn't that revolution cannot start on social media. It is that downloading an app is not the revolution in itself. The US is the imperial core, and because of this, it's got economic dominance, military presence, and cultural influence. In fact, the United States exerts significant cultural influence globally. This is known as cultural imperialism, and it involves the imposition of a dominant community's cultural aspects such as customs, tradition, language, and social norms onto another, less dominant community. And we see this in how American media and entertainment is disseminated globally, often eclipsing local productions. The global use of English, which is bolstered by American economic and political power, influences our communication, our education, and our business practices worldwide. In fact, RedNote began translating its app not long after the increased number of Americans joined the app. And we also see it in American consumer culture becoming the norm, where American brands and consumer goods introduce and often ingrain US consumer habits and preferences in other societies. All of these factors and so much more need to be considered in RedNote as a study. I'm not here to be a party pooper. I'm just here to use this opportunity to give a glimpse or a lens into how we, outside of the imperial core, experience the expansion of America by using RedNote as a case study. And to be honest, after the 12 hours or so that Americans weren't on TikTok and the ban was lifted, was it lifted? I've not seen any videos, at least on my FYP, about the move to RedNote. In fact, all I've seen are still videos of people pushing back. And so my point still stands that after it served its usefulness, the need for a TikTok replacement, it feels like the app has all but been forgotten. I encourage people to approach their newfound love for RedNote with respect and kindness and check in with themselves of what role they are playing within that context. It's important to recognize that while cultural exchange can be enriching, the dominance of one culture over others, especially when coupled with economic and political power, can lead to the erosion of cultural diversity and the undermining of local traditions and identities. And that's my thoughts on the RedNote revolution. I hope my ramblings made some sense. Please let me know what you think. Are you on RedNote? If you are, how are you finding it? If you're not on RedNote but are in America, why did you choose to not download it when the TikTok ban was looming? Let me know your thoughts and your feelings. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys in my next one.